I'll get the microphone volume set.
Okay, hello.
Right.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to our live stream today. It's the first event we're doing like this, and I'm really happy to have everyone here. And my name is Caroline. I've been following MBT and Tom's theory for 12 years now, and it's been a really exciting journey. And I'm so happy to share a glimpse of that today and teach you all a thing or two. And I'm happy to welcome Tom Campbell. He's
Well,
a
thank
former NASA physicist, and he's been exploring consciousness for over 50 years now. So he has a few gems with us to share today, and I'm really excited.
you, Caroline. Can you hear my voice? Do you hear me?
Wait, I can't hear you, Tom.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now. Okay,
Well,
perfect.
tell me, is this a good volume?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yes.
Not too loud?
Not too loud.
Okay. Good. Got it.
Okay, so I'm really excited to have you here, and I'm really curious, and everybody who's here is too. What is remote viewing, and how does it work based on your theory, and what are your experiences with it?
Well, remote viewing is really one of the more complicated paranormal things because it takes it's not just done by the person themselves. It's connecting to a database, and this database, known in history as the Akashic Records, actually has a purpose and a need to be where it is. It's part of the larger consciousness system's process of rendering our virtual reality. And I won't go into a lot of theoretical detail here because we're just talking about the paranormal. But in order for the larger conscious system to render this virtual reality, it has to have a database of all of the possibilities, all of the future possibilities. In other words, everything that could happen and the probability that it would happen. So it's a database of all the possibilities that's inside our virtual reality that we call the physical universe. It needs that database to determine what happens next, because this is a simulation based on probability, not one from the ground up based on physics. So this database is sitting there, and there's a folder in there called Caroline, and there's a folder in there called Tom Campbell, and a folder in there called, everybody's name who's logged on here and all the humans that there are on the planet. And there's probably folders in there for the bumblebees and the dogs and the cats as well. But that folder of you, Caroline, has everything that you have ever done, wanted to do, thought of doing, wondered about, just all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your actions. Everything is there through all of your lifetimes. So it's a really very complete record about you. But it's also about the world, about where all the pieces are. Where are the mountains? Where are the rocks? Is this rock about to roll downhill? It knows all of those things. So it is a very complete database of the state of the physical, call it a physical map, the physical virtual, what I call it virtual reality, but it's what everybody else calls the physical universe. So it's a map of this physical universe, if you will, of all the possibilities and everything that could happen and what's the probability that it will happen. So it's based on probability. All right, now, so given that this database tells almost everything about everything, now we get back to remote viewing. Remote viewing is using your intent to query this database. So if you want to remote view what's going on over at the Eiffel Tower right now, you would get into an altered state of consciousness, clear your mind, let the data stream that defines this virtual reality go. In other words, let the physical reality disappear, and have the thought, have the intent, I'd like to see what's going on at the Eiffel Tower. And I'd like to see that from about 150 feet up in the air, looking down in front of the tower. You will get that picture. You will see the people. You will see the children playing. You'll hear the noises. You'll smell the smells. Whatever it is you'd like to, whatever data you're interested in, you can get that data. Okay, that's what's going on now. Now that's called remote viewing because you're looking at something that's remote. Remote viewers for a long time thought that they could only look at things that were here in, around the earth. They were kind of trapped to what people could see. And then they realized that's not the case. They could remote view the dark side of the moon, or they could remote view what was going on Mars or at Alpha Centauri or any other place. That they could remote view anywhere in the universe that they wanted to remote view. And they also found out that they could remote view into the probable future, because this is, after all, a probable, future database. So they could look at the probability of things that might happen. They could also look into the past, which is where this database goes after it gets to the present. In other words, if I have something in the probable future that's 1 minute away, two minutes from now, that will be in the past. So it'll be a big database of everything that could have happened and the probability that it would have. So they can look at the past, they can look at past lives, they can look at, what Cleopatra said when she picked up a poisonous snake, or whatever. They can check out history, they can look at different events. All of this is available in a lot of detail. Now, the database is very complete, but the thing that is problematical for most people is getting their altered state steady and noiseless, and to keep their intellect from busting in and disrupting the channel. So that means that they probably have to have meditated for about 5 or 10 years, or practiced this sort of thing for a fairly long time in order to keep the right mental state and keep it connected. Otherwise, if you're a beginner, you should just take the very first thing that comes into your mind, because you don't have the stability to sit there and look long term. So you can ask a question like, I'm at the Eiffel Tower. What does it sound like? So you'll get a sound. What does it look like? How many people are there? What does it smell like? Is it sun shining or raining, or what's the weather like? So you can ask all these questions, and as soon as you ask the question, you'll get an answer. The answer is almost instantaneous, because consciousness is a much faster system than the fast that we're on. Its delta T is much smaller than the delta T that drives our virtual reality. So many people miss that point, and they want the remote view, and they say, all right, what's going on at the Eiffel Tower? And then they get ready, get their mind in place, and say, okay, now I'm ready for the answer. Well, the answers already came, it came and went. Answer's over. And you have to be ready for it the instant the word leaves your mind or the message, the query leaves your mind. So that's the mechanics of remote viewing. Now, you don't have to just get a picture. You can also get a movie. You can do remote viewing, say in the past, and you can see it like you are watching a movie. So it's not just still shots, but it's movies as well. And you can do that same thing in the probable future. But remember, it's just a probable future. It's not the future. The future hasn't been decided on yet. It's just what's probable, what's likely to happen. And in your query, you could say, I would like to see all the things that are most likely to happen. Or I'd like to see the third most likely thing that's going to happen. There's lots of ways you can address the database, and it takes a little practice doing that. So that's the basic mechanics behind remote viewing. One other thing I would say is that you can also remote view in real time. That's how people see without eyes. And if you don't know about that, I guess you can Google it, look it up. But you can learn to remote view in real time. Now, if you're 5 years old, you can learn to do that in a couple of hours. If you're 7 or 8 years old, you can learn to do that probably in a day or maybe 2 days. If you're an adult, you may not be able to learn that at all. You may not be able to get your mind in the right condition unless you go to a training course and learn how to do it. And that training course will take at least 2 weeks to 3 weeks before you'll be able to see without your eyes. So why should the 5-year-old get it almost instantly when the adult has a hard time getting it at all? Because the 5-year-old doesn't have many beliefs about the way the world works. To the 5-year-old, everything's magic. Getting in your automobile and driving is magic. You know, almost everything just is because it is. It just happens, and they accept that. So the idea that you could read with a blindfold on, well, okay. They say I can, then we'll see. And they're open to it. Whereas an adult says, that's impossible. I can't read with a blindfold over my eyes. I can't read if I'm in a small room with all the lights off and there's no windows. If it's perfectly pitch black dark, I can't read. I can't read what's going on in the room next door. Well, the fact is, you can actually do that in real time, but few people are successful because it takes practice. And most people who learn how to do it, after a while, they stop practicing it and they let it go. And one of those reasons is because they can't talk to anybody about it. And it's a thing that makes them unusual, if not downright weird. And we tend to be social animals that want to be just like everybody else. So there's a lot of social pressure to be like everyone else. Social pressure we put on ourselves. So people who learn it often let it go after a time that they convince themselves that it's possible. Then they let go. Now, there are blind people who have learned this. So you can teach a blind person to see without eyes. This is a blind person who's never had eyes. Maybe they just don't have an optic nerve or some other sort of thing, born blind, and they can learn to see as well. So you'd think, wow, that's a really big thing. Well, yes, but like all paranormal things, the outside world will hear about that and say, nonsense. It's a hustle. You know, people are just making that up. It can't possibly be true, and then they forget about it. So the larger population doesn't have any idea that any of this exists, that any of it's possible. But all of the basic paranormal things are just attributes of consciousness. Once you understand consciousness, understand how this reality works, that it's a virtual reality, that our reality comes from a data stream from the larger consciousness system that we interpret to be whatever our reality is. Once you understand that principle, once you you discipline your mind so that you can let go of the data stream that defines this physical reality and then attach to another data stream that the larger conscious system gives you about some different reality, or attach to a data stream directly from this database that will show you what's going on in the world. Okay, now this database is coming from the history database. If you're just looking at what is around you now and what has been, but this database can also come from the probable future. You can look at what the possibilities are, and you can do what if analysis. If I did this, how is that going to work out 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? And you can see the probabilities. And you can even say, I want some statistics with this. I want error bars. I want to see only things that have a probability above zero point 0.5 or above zero point 0.8 or above 0.95. And you can if you're a mathematician and understand statistics, you can ask for any of the statistical um, things that come along with information. You get standard deviations and other such things. So that's how remote viewing works. Now, for an individual who wants to learn to remote view, the first thing would be to develop the discipline that's required for you to put your mind in what we call an altered state. Altered state just means that it's not your normal state of being here in the physical reality. You practice that to where you can shift your mind to an altered state that is not in the physical reality. It's like awareness, but not here. Okay, now I call the simplest of those states point consciousness. Point consciousness is when you just exist as a point of consciousness. So you're aware that you exist, but you are in a black, soundless void, just floating there. See nothing, hear nothing, think nothing. You just exist. It's the Descartes moment of I am. And that's the only thing you're aware of, is that you are, that you exist. Well, when you can stay in point consciousness for, say, 20 minutes without popping out, then you're a pretty good meditator and you're ready to do other things. Once you stay in point consciousness, say, for 20 minutes without interruption, then you can, from there, you can remote view, you can go out of body, you can talk to dead people, you can do all kinds of interesting things. And I might say, since I mentioned dead people, is that the dead people you talk to are not actually the dead people who were here. They're not dead people at all. You're talking to the database. And if you're asking questions of that dead person, things that say about the present, say, oh, like talking to my dead Uncle Fred. And my dead Uncle Fred, and I say, hey, Uncle Fred, what do you think about the election coming up? Well, Fred's been dead for a decade. How would he know about an election coming up? Well, then it goes into the database and tells me things which are exactly like what Fred would have said, because Fred has been so detailed in his database that the system can tell just what Fred would have said. Now, how does Fred talk with me then? Well, he's animated by the larger consciousness system. So when you talk to dead people, you're talking to people as they exist in this data field. And right away people go, "Oh no, I really am talking to my real, you know, Uncle Fred." Well, it's about as close to your real Uncle Fred as anyone can get after all. You are a piece of consciousness. Uncle Fred was a piece of consciousness. Uncle Fred was getting a virtual reality and data stream just like you are. So the Uncle Fred that you get to talk to is a piece of consciousness using the historical Uncle Fred as a go by. So it is exactly like Uncle Fred, right down to every detail, thought, feeling, attitude, knowledge, everything, because the database is that complete. So yes, it is an exact copy of Uncle Fred. Otherwise, you'd have your poor Uncle Fred wandering around in a non-physical, waiting for somebody to call, you know, playing his harp on a cloud, just waiting for the phone to ring and somebody to, have a medium call him up. But that's not the way it works. When Uncle Fred dies, Uncle Fred moves on. He finds another lifetime to live and does that. He doesn't hang around waiting for the phone to ring and somebody to chat with him. So that was pretty long monologue, but that's because remote viewing is a little complicated. First, you got to understand, the nature of reality, that it's a virtual reality, that the virtual reality needs the database to be computed, that the database is available to consciousness, and that you're not the avatar, you're not the human. You are a piece of consciousness. I call it an individuated unit of consciousness playing a human avatar. So you're not really the human, that's the avatar. You're a piece of consciousness that makes all that avatar's choices. Just like if you were playing a video virtual reality game, you're the player. There is an avatar that does the things, and that avatar does only what you tell it to do. If you don't tell it to do anything, it just stands there and does nothing. Well, that's what your avatar would do if you didn't tell it to do anything. It'd just stand there and wait for instructions. So you are in charge of that avatar, and you've been in charge with that uh, as far as you know forever. In other words, you're a piece of consciousness that was created just to work with that avatar, and you're never aware of doing anything else. You're a subset of this individuated unit of consciousness. So in your mind, you are the avatar. That's what you think. You don't think, oh, I'm a piece of consciousness and this avatar is yeah, my human avatar here. You think I am the human being because it's a 100% immersion in that data stream. So now with all of that, I turn it back over to you, Caroline. Are there questions out there or anything that I've triggered in your mind that needs to be discussed?
Yes, I would really like to know what is your experience like? It's like, what do you experience when you do remote viewing? Are you immersed or do you see a movie, or is it depending on what's
It
appropriate?
de- it depends on what I want to know. If what I want to know, say I'm in a parking space and I have two trucks, one on either side of me, or two big vans, and I'm trying to back out of that parking space, but I'm backing out into something unknown. I can't see either. I can't see to the right, can't see to the left. So I remote view what's behind me out there in the parking space. So I see that like a movie. I see the parking space, I see cars, and when there aren't any cars, I back out slowly. So, that's a remote viewing, and there I see a movie. If I were remote viewing pictures, then the best way to remote view a picture is piece by piece. The sound, the colors, the architecture, and then you draw it on a piece of paper as you go. You draw it. Now that's kind of the easy way, and I say it that way because that's what beginners should do. It's not so good to just say, "What's the picture?" Because your mind will associate all kinds of things with that picture, and you have to be very experienced to separate what your mind makes up from what it is you're getting from the database. And that's part of your experience, and that won't happen for you initially. So it's better just to do one element at a time. What's it smell like? What's it look like? And if you get an idea, well, make a mark on your paper here and just put maybe a slanted line there. make a circle over here, and you make a circle. Now draw a line between those two. You get instructions on how to draw the thing, and don't ever guess at what it is. It is. To guess about it is to make a mistake. Don't say, "Oh, it's red and it's round. Oh, it must be an apple." No, it's not an apple. It's something else that's red and round. So as soon as you start guessing, you start, making mistakes. You have to get it from your intuitive side. Now, that's the second thing about all the paranormal things that I should talk about now that I've talked a little about remote viewing. All paranormal activity takes place in your intuitive side. You've got an intellectual side and an intuitive side to your mind. These are two different paths by which you process data. When you process data from the intellectual side, you're using a tool called logic, rationality. Does this make sense? You're looking at the logic of things. Well, when you use that side, the problem with it is that you never have enough information to be, to use deductive logic. To use deductive logic, you have to know a whole lot of things about the problem. You take a problem like, should I marry Sally or should I marry Sue? Well, you can't use deductive logic on that unless you have a crystal ball that shows you, the detailed probable future. And if you don't have that crystal ball, then there's just not a lot of data that you can bring up that will give you a logical answer. That problem doesn't have a logical answer, but you can intuit that. Well, what would be the difference? And you could kind of follow each one of those marriages for 10 or 15 years, 20 years, and see how they worked out. Probably would work out. All right. So on the intellectual side, we have a very pristine, accurate, wonderful tool called logic, but we never have enough information to really use it very well. We think we're logical all the time, but we are not. We are mostly guessing. We're mostly making our choices because of our fears and our beliefs, not because we're logical. Now, on the intuitive side, it also has a problem, but its problem is not enough information. It has plenty of information. Those databases have all the information about everything. So there's lots of information, and the probabilities are very accurate too. As they change and mold as things happen here, the probabilities change all the time. But the problem with the intuitive side is that you need a still, quiet, low noise mind, and then an ability to focus all of that mind on a thing and hold it steady and interact with that thing. So that's not as easy as it sounds. Most people who try to meditate, they're told to close your eyes and just have nothing in your mind, just a blank mind. Nothing, no information, no words, no thoughts, just blank. Most people on their first try get about 5 seconds before a thought comes through. And it takes them months before they get that down to a whole minute, and then it takes more months before they can do that and hold it for an hour without a single stray thought ever coming through. That's discipline. You have to discipline your mind, and you have to develop pinpoint focus so you can focus all your mental energy on a particular thing, that your focus is not scattered. So that takes a little time. Most people, their minds flit around a lot. That's why the paranormal things sometimes work and sometimes don't. Sometimes you can get out of body, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you remote view and you're right on and you get it right, and the next time you don't. That's because the state of your mind flits around and changes from, a half a second to the next half a second. It's constantly on the move. So it takes time to train that mind to settle down and to focus. And your intention also makes a difference. If your intention is a good intention, then it will work better than if your intention is not such a good intention. Now, what is good and what is not good? Well, those are a matter of an entropy calculation, but that we're not going to go into here just yet. So, what do I see? It depends on what I want to see, the information I'd like to know. Sometimes I'm out, don't know exactly where I am on the map, and don't it's very busy traffic. I don't have time to fiddle with the dials or the knobs to call up the information I need, and I'm going to make a turn, very shortly. So I just wing it intuitively. What am I going to do when I get there? Make that turn or go straight, which is the right one, and you'll get an answer. We'll come back right away, and you do it, and almost all the time it's right. So in that case, I'm just looking for a word. Turn straight. One word or the other, or a picture of an arrow going around a corner or an arrow going straight. So sometimes it's very simple what you remote view, but if you don't have your intellect sitting down and being quiet, your intellect will always try to answer every question you ask. It will try to answer every query. And if you say, should I go straight or should I turn? It will just either make something up randomly, tell you an answer, or it will, or it will not know. You won't get an answer. It doesn't know. So if your intellect is there, it will jump in and take charge because our intellect is dominant in our culture. We train and train and train our intellect. We hone it. We go to school for, you know, years and years and years to get that intellect to work smoothly and cleverly and assess things properly. And we don't do anything to develop our intuitive side. We're probably more intuitive when we're 2 years old than we are now, as adults. Most people, if anything, they lose their ability to be intuitive, where it's natural when you're 2, 3, 4 years old. Intuition is available and fairly strong and accurate. So we ignore it. We don't develop it. So on the intellectual side, we spend 20 years developing our intuition. Get out of college when we're 21, and we're pretty decent when it comes to thinking and using our minds. But we let the intuitive side just kind of fall on the floor and forget about it. So we are uneducated and generally very very unpracticed and stupid when it comes to our intuitive side. We're just not very good with it. But here is a fact. If you develop your intuitive side, you can develop it to be just as accurate and just as reliable. Actually, the truth is more accurate and more reliable than the intellectual side. But you have to develop it. And that generally takes years, sometimes decades, sometimes several lifetimes. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to want to do it and then practice a couple hours a day. You practice it, and some years, then you get better and better at it. But remote viewing is one of the best paranormal things to play with because you can go to the web and Google probably remote viewing targets, and you will get a dozen websites that will give you remote viewing targets, something to practice with. And here's the way they work. You call up this website and you pick pick a number. You'll get a number, and the number will probably have 6 or 7 digits in it, like 752413. That's your number. Now there is a picture that is associated with that number. The database probably has 100,000 pictures in it, and each one has a number, same kind of number, a 7-digit number. So There is a picture, one picture out of all those pictures, there's one picture that belongs to that number. And your job is to remote view that picture that goes with that number. And after you do it and you've written it down, you've drawn the picture, you said, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What are the colors and how does it work? And you've gone through all of these questions about it. Then you're ready to check your answer. Then you go back up and you type in your number, push the button, and it shows you the picture. Then you see what you've drawn, compare it to what the picture is, and decide whether you've been successful or not. So that is a way that you can easily, real time, test your remote viewing. So what's better than that for learning? You take a test and you get an instant answer. Well, you'll find that in the beginning, if you don't try too hard, if you just say, I'll just go along with the flow and see what pops in my mind and we'll see what happens, not expect anything, then you'll probably get some of them right, maybe even most of them right. And as soon as you go, oh, wow, I seem to have talent for this. Well, I could do much better if I tried. As soon as you try, you'll get them all wrong because trying is an intellectual thing. And once that intellect gets involved, you're done. Your intuitive side shuts down, the intellect takes over, and you get nothing right. Now you're guessing. So the best way to approach it is relaxed, no expectations, no goals. Just do it to see what happens. Like you're a scientist and you're just checking this out and seeing what it's going to do. So okay, you get your number, you get your mind, and you say, all right, number 25673. What's the picture? And before the word picture even gets off their lips, you're getting things. Now, for beginners, getting a whole picture is confusing because they're getting this whole big slug of data all at once, and they're not used to dealing with data like this. So it's much easier again to say, what is this? What are the dominant colors? What are the lines? And you'll see a line. Well, what you see, you draw it instantly. As soon as you say, oh, did they just show me a line? Well, then you've lost it. You might as well start over because you've missed it. You're starting to let your intellect make judgments about how you're doing, and that will just mess you up. So you just do it. It's intuitive, not intellectual. You can't chase the information. The information comes to you. You just have to be open to receive it. So at this point, Caroline, any other questions or things you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I would like to know, once we start accessing the database or trying to access the database, how do we know that the information that we're getting is the right one, or it's just our minds playing tricks on us?
You will never know ahead of time. The only way to know is to check, the answer. Again, if you're in one of these databases with targets, you go put the number in and you look. That's how you know whether you're right or not. Now, whether you're backing out in a car like I am and you want to see if there's any traffic coming, the way you know that it's right is because it feels right. That's not something your intellect knows. That's something your intuitive side knows. When you make a connection and you get information, after you've done this, say, 2,000 or 3,000 times, the times that work have a different feel to them than the times that don't. The way you get the information, the way you feel about the information, the way it comes to you, the I don't know, the coordination of it all just is really slick and smooth. And then you know it's right. If it's bumpy or not smooth, then it's probably not going to be right. So what you do is you just, as you get the information, you will know, is this reliable or is this not? You'll have a sense of it. Now, that won't necessarily be 100% correct all the time, but most of the time, you know when you have a right answer. That just felt right. It worked. It was so smooth, so immediate. I wasn't trying. It just came and it was clear. And you have to do it many, many times before you get the sense of what it is you're doing and the quality of it. So I'd say use those targets on the web and until you get fairly good at it, till you get it right, say 75, 80% of the time. Okay. That will kind of train you. After that, you can use it out in the real world, like to see traffic or to see what's going on at home or are the kids all right? All sorts of things that you can get information out of the database for. Again, it matters what kind of data you're looking for. You have to, if your intent is a good one, a good low entropy intent, an intent that is based in caring for other people, integrity, honesty, it's ethical, then you'll get the information clearly. If your intent is not too ethical, let's say, oh, I want to learn to remote view so I can look in the girls' locker room. See, that's not a good intent. That's invading other people's privacy. I want to look at so and so and see what they're doing. I want to look at my competition in the business and see what they're planning. All of these things are not good intents. You may want to know that sort of thing, but it's not a good use of remote viewing. And if you do that kind of thing a lot, you will become less and less good at it, even though you trained on targets on the web. You'll find that it'll work less and less. The system does not support you raising entropy. The system is all about lowering its entropy. And as you do things that raise entropy, well, don't expect the larger conscious system to be helping you out because you're trying to you're contributing negatively to the system. You're not contributing positively to it. You become a burden on the system, so it just doesn't work with you, and will sometimes give you misinformation just to get you to stop. So it's important what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Like everything else in life. Hmm? Yes.
Yes, like everything else in life works out that way. Indeed, it does. Now, there's some other paranormal things we could talk about, but we can continue remote viewing if there are uh, more questions. I don't know whether the people out there and that are logged on have an ability to ask questions or not, but perhaps we can get some of their questions.
Hmm. I would like to know, when in the beginning you talked about how we can also access the database, which is kind of also called the protocols or Akashic records. And
Mhm.
you were saying that it's also possible to have like an immerse experience where you can hear Cleopatra and what she said. And is there
Mhm.
like moments in your day-to-day life where you use those abilities to immerse yourself to access data like that? And how skeptical are you of the information you're getting?
Well, this will be a more difficult answer because it's not real straightforward, but here it goes. Yes, I get data out of the database off and on all the time, but I do it so automatically that most of the time I'm not thinking about it. It's become part of my life. I live my life mostly in the intuitive space. Now, I don't know if the people out here in the audience know me, but I'm a physicist. I'm I'm retired now, but I earned my pay and paid the rent, put gas in the car with doing physics for companies and organizations and so on. So I'm very careful about what I take in, the information I take in. I tend to be very skeptical about everything. But I've been doing this for a long, long time. You mentioned you have 50 years. It's been, yeah, at least that long. Actually, probably more than 50 years. More like 60 or 63 or 4 years that I've been doing this. And if you go all the way down to my very young years at 5 and 6, 7 years old, when I first started doing things that were paranormal, it's been almost 80 years that I've been doing this. So I have a lot of experience. I live on the intuitive side because the intuitive side is much richer and has much more value in it, really, than does the intellectual side. But I use my intellect as needed. In other words, that part of me that is kind of the default is the intuitive side. The intellect, though, is always there to do the things the intellect does best. You don't want to throw the intellect away. You need it. It does analysis for you. It judges things. It allows you to assess, compare. And all these things are important today. So you need to be able to do that. But as my intuitive side needs some input from the intellect, it just gets input from the intellect. But normally, I live on an intuitive side, which means my intellect and intuitive side share. They work together really well. They when well, like I say, when the intuitive side needs the intellect, it gets it. When the intellect needs some intuitive information, it gets it. So it's a shared thing. Now, if somebody, let's say you walked up to me and you said, Tom, could you help me out? My grandmother's been having a really hard time lately, and she just went into the hospital today. And while you're talking to me, I'm already getting data out of the database about your mother, about her condition, about what the doctors say about her, about other people who've had those conditions. How bad is she? How good is she? What's the prognosis? If I do nothing, what's the prognosis if I help? So I'm getting graphs, I'm getting data, I'm getting information, I'm getting charts, and I'm getting all of that while I'm having a conversation with you. And I'm not stopping to think about it like, oh, now let me calm myself or let me get in a good state and let me connect. I'm always in a good state. I stay in a meditation state pretty much all the time, which people who know me, yeah, Tom's not always here. Sometimes he's someplace else. His body's here, but he's not always at home. So anyway, I would be getting that information as you talk to me. And then, within a minute, I'd have all that information. Within a half a minute, usually it just comes because I want it or I need it. That's my intent now. I don't have to sit down and compose a precise intent. It just happens on the fly automatically, and the information just comes in. So that's how it works with me. I kind of stay in that altered state of consciousness because I've learned to be more than one place at one time. So I can be in that state and still be here so that you really don't notice too much how here I am. But, I say that, maybe you'd have a different answer for the audience, whether you notice how much I'm here and how much I'm drifting around. But in any case, I can carry on, so, conversations and drive cars and do all sorts of things. And when I need more intellectual space, then I drift over into the intellectual space. If I'm solving a math problem, then I get into the intellectual space. If I'm doing other things, I move over to this. So it's a fluid thing. Most of the time I'm in intuitive space, but I slip back and forth in hundreds of seconds of time, and it all just becomes a kind of a fluid thing. It's not like I'm thinking, oh, now I need to get into the intellectual space. I just get into that space because it's time for it. So the having to command it with your thoughts or having to get your intellect in charge of ordering things, disappears after a while and you just live in it. But now that's after a lot of years of doing this. It becomes part of who you are. So I don't know, maybe you'll tell the audience, when you talk to me, do you get the feeling that I'm here and present with you intellectually, or do you get the feeling that sometimes I'm not there? I'm out gathering information. Most of the time, it doesn't show much. It's pretty it's, the gathering of information is pretty transparent to most people. They don't notice it. They kinda look right through it and don't see it. Or I should say it's pretty opaque to most people, I guess. They don't see it. So, yeah, for me, it's different than it is for most people, because most people haven't been doing this all their lives like I have.
Yeah, and I can definitely say that you're always present, and I don't really notice much that you're doing otherwise, other than you feel really good. I think when you enter the room somewhere, also at like an event, it's like people can feel your presence, and I've multiple people telling me that, oh, suddenly once they talk to you or they think about you, they start to feel so good about you.
Yeah, I
And
also have a reputation of being a good hugger.
definitely,
I
I
can
can confirm that.
I have events and you have to stand in line, and get a Tom hug because I care about people and I have a lot of love to give. And when I hug somebody, I put a lot into it. It's not just, oh, kind of an empty gesture that people do. Oh, hi, nice to see you again, hug, but it doesn't really mean anything. But I'm not like that. So my hugs are very sincere and full of love and caring. And I get do an event, and it's hard to get the event done for all the socializing and hugging that goes on around it.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend everybody to join an event one day and to come experience the Tom hug. And yeah, it was interesting what you said about your own experience. And how does it come to you? In what form do you request it? Do you feel it? Do you see it? Do you hear it?
What I need to know pops into my head just as I need to know it. That's the way it is most of the time. As I need to know things, like I need to know about your sick mother or grandmother, and what I need to know about her just pops into my head. And and information comes very quickly with consciousness. So I may get the whole story about your mother in 3 seconds. I couldn't speak it that quickly, but the knowledge comes that quickly. So then I just know about it, know how it's probably going to end up, and what could be done about it, if anything. So I kind of get that sense of it, and it comes very quickly. And I don't really ask for it. It just, I do ask for it, but I ask for it intuitively, not intellectually. I guess that's what I should say. When you live in your intuition, your intellect doesn't say, "Oh, I should go and get this information and find out about so and so. Okay, let me do that. Okay, let's see, database. Tell me what." You don't have to go all through all that intellectual, stuff. You just somebody says, "Oh, my, sick mother is having a problem," and information about your mother starts showing up. So it's don't have to really take an intellectual process to get to it. It just happens on its own. And I think that's true the longer anybody works in this field and does these things, they get to be part of your life. They're not just fun things that you play with, but it becomes a part of your life eventually. Now, I've been doing it for a long time, but from the ages of probably 7 to 20 something, middle 20s, um, it was all intuitive. My intellect wasn't connected to it at all. I would just intuitively get information as I needed it. After the mid-20s, I got in contact with Bob Monroe, and then I started studying it. Then I brought the intellect along because I wanted to understand, how does it work? Why does it work that way? What are the limitations? What does it mean? At that time, I had no idea that this database was required for virtual reality. I only put that together after years of exploring the larger consciousness system. But it's a work of a lifetime. But as you grow in this area, it becomes automatic, not something you have to do. So you go to somebody who, let's say, talks to dead people. That's their thing, and they're a medium. They don't sit down and light a candle and go into do things. If they do, they're probably not so good. They're probably doing all that stuff for your entertainment or to build up their credibility. Because if they're good, all they do is bring up the person, start talking to them. All they have to do is imagine them in their mind. You want to talk to your Uncle Fred? All right. Okay, I see Uncle Fred, and he's doing such and such. They just start off with the conversation. That's because they're so used to that all of the ritual, all the paraphernalia, all the process of getting ready starts to disappear. And it's just a matter of the information's there. So that would be somebody who really is good at it. But I'm sure there's lots of people who really aren't very good at it that also sell their services too, and maybe they go through a lot of rituals for it. But all of that becomes unnecessary. Beginners tend to use things like that, but if you're not a beginner and you've been doing it a long time, then the information just flows to you as you need it.
So, what can we do to become good at this, and uh, how can we optimize our daily practices? Is there a way we can optimize the way we treat our avatar, or how we can get over the fear of not being included in society or being weird? Or what are some exercises? It's like, how can we boost that practice?
Yeah, well, you mentioned two really important things. One is fear. If you have fear, and most everybody in our culture is pretty full of fear, and I don't mean fear of big animals with long teeth. I mean fear of not being adequate, fear of not being good enough, fear of not fitting in, fear of not being lovable, fear of not succeeding, fear of being wrong. There's all these kind of emotional fears that people have. They will get in the way. Any fears that you have will get in the way. So if you are fearful, then it's very difficult for you to just open your mind and let the intellect, sit down and be quiet. Those fears don't want to be quiet. They want to, you know, they want to control you. They want to, to get into your mind as much as possible. So then when you try to meditate, your mind is always full of fearful things. Oh, did I leave the stove on? Did I leave, did I do this? What time is it? I have to pick my son up from daycare. Is it past the time yet? It's constantly coming up with problems and issues and difficulties. And you need to be able to get over that, get rid of those fears. Otherwise, the paranormal will always be iffy, happen whenever you just happen to get your mind in the right kind of space at the right time, and all the necessary ingredients just happen to occur at the right time, then it'll work. And you'll go out of body, or you'll get a good remote viewing, or you'll get information, and you'll know stuff intuitively. You'll just know answers to things. And but you can't do it when you want to, how you want to. It just happens sometimes and it doesn't. That's because of the fears that you have. Your meditation state is not as stable. You don't have as much discipline as you need. So one thing is work on your fear. Now, how do you know whether you have fear? Look at your emotions. Look at your feelings. Ask yourself, in the last week, did I ever feel anything negative? Did I ever feel stressed, unhappy, annoyed, angry, upset, frustrated? All these are negative things. And the answer is, what do you mean? I don't have to go back a whole week. I can just, go back, like 4 or 5 hours ago, I felt like that. I was annoyed with things. I'm annoyed with politics. I'm annoyed with, institutions. I'm annoyed with my husband or my wife. I'm annoyed with my children and they won't do their homework, and you have all these things that annoy you and bother you and you get upset about, and you try to fix them or try to manipulate them into being the way you know that they should be, and you're not successful at that. So you get frustration. If that is part of your life, even a little part, then you have fears. If you didn't have fear, you wouldn't have any of those negative things. You wouldn't have them. You'd be dealing with all of those things positively. It's not that all the issues in your life would suddenly disappear, but how you related to them and dealt with them would change. You deal with them in a positive way, and you'd be able to be much more successful in dealing with them in that positive way. So if you don't have fear, then you generally have a life of joy, peace, happiness, tranquility. You don't get upset, you don't get annoyed, you don't run out of patience. You just, life is good and it's fun and you enjoy it. Life is a beautiful thing to have and to live, and you enjoy the people around you and connect with them. And it doesn't matter whether they're perfect people or not. That's irrelevant. You enjoy them just the way they are, and you don't get upset. So those are the two different ways you need to be. If you're going to be good at the paranormal, you need to not have a lot of negativity in you. That will get in the way. Negativity wants to control, and your intuitive side doesn't won't be controlled. Your intuitive side, you just open yourself to it and information comes. Yes, you can make your queries such that you control what you query for, what you want, but you can't make the system do what you want it to do when you want to do it. It will send you the information. You have to be ready to get it. You have to be ready to accept it. And if you're not, well, you just don't get it. It'll just go in your mind and you will never even notice that it was there. And you see that a lot with the remote viewer beginners when they'll finally look at the picture and say, "Oh, gee, I got something just like that, but I didn't believe it. I thought, well, it couldn't be that, so I went on and did something else." And a lot of times they'll look at the truth data in the picture and realize that they threw some of that data away. They did get something that was like that, but they couldn't accept it. Oh, I got the color blue, but then I thought, blue? Did I really just get that, or did I just make that up? And then they get confused and they can't work with it, but they realize the errors they're made. That's what's so handy about remote viewing is you can practice and practice, see what your errors are, keep working on it. So remote viewing is a good one because you get instant feedback as to whether you're right or whether you're wrong. Uh, over to you again.
Here's a question on the screen.
And how do synchronicities work within your theory?
Well, synchronicities happen because the larger consciousness system wants to help you for the most part. Now, they can happen for a lot of different reasons, but the synchronicity I'm talking about is that you walk into a library and you walk down the row and you're looking at shelves on both sides, and you look down the shelf and there's a book, bright red cover sticking halfway off the shelf. Oh, I wonder what that's about. And you walk up and you pick it up and you find out it's exactly the thing you needed. And say, well, what's the probability of that? The exact thing I needed, just sitting out there begging for me to notice it. Well, that's a synchronicity. That book just happened to be there, noticeable when you were looking for it. Well, those kinds of synchronicities are the larger consciousness system trying to help you out. And it's trying to help you out because you're a person of interest. You're somebody interested in growing up, lowering your entropy, in becoming a more capable, more caring person. And if you're interested in growth, then the system will work with you and create those synchronicities. The right information will come to you just as you need it. Things will come to you. You're someplace and your car, is starting to choke and run out of gas. And oh, look, there's a gas station right at the bottom of the hill. I can just coast down this hill and drive right into the gas station. Oh, what a great synchronicity. Well, those kinds of things will happen every day in your life. Every day in your life, the things you need will fall in front of you just as you need them. And I know it sounds magical, it sounds a little crazy, but that will happen. And for those of you out here who've been down that path, you know that that's true. You get to the point where you're growing, you're succeeding, you're becoming love, and everything you need falls in front of you just as you need it. You even get to the point you depend on it. So those are called synchronicities, those things that just happen just as you need them and just happen to work out just right. The person that you need to meet and talk to just happens to bump into the back of your car and you both get out to see if there's any damage, that kind of thing. And then you get to know each other, you trade email addresses, and pretty soon that's a connection that you needed to make. So synchronicities are mostly engineered by the larger consciousness system to help you out. No, they wouldn't have happened without intervention. They're just things that are extremely unlikely to have just happened by chance. And we call them synchronicities. They just happen. There's a little like 1 in 100 million that guy who bumped your fender, you get out and talk to him, would just happen to be looking for an employee just like you, and you just happen to be looking for a job just like his. And then you just happen that subject comes up in your conversation about the damage of the car. So those things happen. You go, wow, what a synchronicity.
And how does the system also help us in our dreams? Like, can it also nudge us in a certain direction or give us some messages?
Yes, it does. It does nudge us. And I'm also looking at the thing that you're reading. So I saw that it asks about tests. Yes, it gives us tests. Once you become a person of interest to the larger consciousness system, it will work with you. It will help you. It knows the kind of lessons you need to learn next. And part of the way it knows that is by giving you tests. And you will have tests in your dreams, in your out of body experiences. You'll have tests. Let's say that one of your tests has to do with, thinking about other people. Well, not being so self centered. Well, one night you'll dream that you're in the third story of a 5-story building and you notice that it's caught on fire. It's in the middle of the night. Nobody else knows this. You're the only one that you just happened to wake up and saw the fire. You realize your building's on fire. What do? Save yourself and run outside, or go up to the 5th floor and start banging on doors? Well, maybe if you do that, you'll save a lot of people, but maybe not yourself. So what choice do you make? Well, that's just a test to see how grown up you are. You see? So why do you get dreams like that, where you just dropped into a situation and you have to make choices? Well, when those kind of dreams come where you're dropped into situations where you have to make choices, those are probably tests. The system's determining where are you? What level are you? What do you need to learn next? And then it will help you learn those things. It will put opportunities to learn those things in your path. Now, whether you reach out and grab that opportunity and actualize it into learning, that's up to you. But it'll put those opportunities in front of you.
And do our fictional ideas affect the higher, more fundamental non-physical realities in a way that would have them reflect our art back at us?
They can. If this is something that the system can do that will help you wake up and help you improve yourself, let you see a little bit of the nature of reality, that it isn't just this buttoned down physical place, that there's all kinds of feedback loops that are employed by the system to help you grow up. Now, if you are a person and you have no, you don't understand any of what I've been talking about, you say, oh, it's a bunch of baloney, and none of this stuff is like that. That's okay to be skeptical, but I'd say go find out, go do it, go practice, go learn it, and you'll find out to the contrary. You'll surprise yourself, you'll shock yourself. But yes, there are all sorts of things that the system will do to you as an individual to help wake you up. And having your art come back at you like that is just one of those cycles. Synchronicities is another thing that will help kind of wake you up. Sometimes people get into things that are really meaningless, like every time I look at the clock, I see 111, 1111. I see all ones. Why is that? Why is that? Or maybe they see 7s or 9s or 5s or something, but those are things that the system does to you just to get you to see that there's something strange going on here. And it's easy enough for the system to do that because whenever the clock gets to something that has a row of 1s in it, you get nudged. Oh, Caroline, look at your watch. Look at the clock. What time is it? So you look at it. No, look at there. It's all 1s. So it's a simple thing for it to do. But then you know that there's something else going on, because what's the probability that when you randomly look at a timepiece 6 times in a day, that 5 of them are all filled with 1s? Well, the probability of that happening naturally is probably about 1 in 50,000 or 1 in 100,000. It's just not likely to come up that way. But if it does happen that way, then it says, well, gee, something's going on. The reality is stranger than I thought. What is it about this reality? And why does it work that way? It gets you questioning. That's what starts people growing. Just something silly like, rows of 1s get people on the internet saying, I see all 1s. What does that mean? And pretty soon they find their way to my Big Toe website, and they find their way to other places that give them some directions. And then they start to grow and see bigger pictures. And so the system is constantly trying to provide us with an idea that our reality is deeper and broader and more interesting than just the physical stuff that the physicists tell us is out there. There's something else going on. There's some other qualities to it that are mental that are mind-based, consciousness-based, that offer a kind of a rich playground or a rich workspace for you to, to play in or to work in. So it's constantly doing that for us. I think a lot of the UFOs that are seen it's the same thing. They're seen, within a consciousness context. And that's there just purely to help bump people out of the mental and emotional ruts that they get in. It's something different, something new, something bigger than just your normal everyday life. So go think about it. Go explore. That system does that a lot.
Okay, I think we could move on to a next topic. Maybe I think some people are interested in how you experience alternate reality frames and different realities, and also beings in them or spirits. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience there now?
Sure. Well, let's in general talk about what people limit or what people call out of bodies, an out of body experience. Well, it's a really poor name. Consciousness does not live in your body. No any more than you're playing a game of some virtual reality game, and there's a warrior, a princess that is your avatar, and and are you in the warrior princess? No, you're the player. You're sitting out there with a computer and a mouse, and you're saying, "Warrior princess, run away, or warrior princess, fight, do this, do that, pull out your magic sword." You're telling her what to do and how to do it. You're making all the choices for her. But you don't live inside your warrior princess. You're a piece of consciousness that lives outside. Virtual realities are just virtual realities. So, the things that are in the avatars in virtual realities are just eye candy. They're pictures that are made so that the people playing the game can see what's going on. That's, they don't actually exist. A virtual reality only exists in the minds of the players. Players get data streams and they interpret those data streams to be worlds and players and people and rivers and trees and events. So you have that now. So what is an out of body? An out of body is where you drop your data stream that you're getting from the larger conscious system that defines this physical reality, the physical universe, which is a virtual reality. So you drop that data stream, and as soon as you drop it, you're like Dorothy. You're no longer in Kansas. You're no longer in this physical world. You're adrift. Now, the larger consciousness system will send you another data stream, and it'll show you something else, another thing, another place, another world, perhaps, other people. And you get to communicate with these other people and talk to them. You ask them their name, which is kind of silly because people really don't go by names. And some of them will wonder, well, what's a name? But they'll humor you, make something up. And so you say, well, I've been places. I've gone places and seen things and talked to other individuals. You're just getting a different data stream. Now, excuse me, taking a little throat lozenge here, but I feel a need for it coming up. So we tend to look at those things and say, well, we got out of our body, like we live in our body, and we move across our bedroom and we look back and see our sleeping body, and then we launch ourselves up through the ceiling, through the roof, or through the wall, out into the world, and then pretty soon we're in some other reality frame, some other place, and it doesn't actually work that way. You drop one data stream, you pick up another. You can do all those things if that's what you want to see. If what you say is, well, when I pick up another data stream, what I want to see is my body sleeping. Okay, the system will let you watch your body sleep. Eventually that becomes pretty boring, watching your body sleep. So you skip that step and you don't do that anymore. It's not something you have to do. It's just something people do because they think that's what they should see. The first thing I should see is my body lying in bed in the room. So that's what they see. The next thing I should notice is going through the wall, the texture of the inside of the wall. Then I'm free. I'm out into space, and maybe you can see the neighbor's house, or maybe you just disappear into another reality. Or maybe you need a metaphor to help you disappear into another reality, like streak off like a light beam and go into a big black hole or some kind of thing like that. But all of those are just metaphors to have you let go and to start something else. You outgrow that eventually, so you don't always stop to watch your body sleep, because like I say, that doesn't add a whole lot to the experience after a bit. That's not what's happening. You're not getting out of your body. But if that's what you want to see, watch your body sleep. You can do that. So anyway, you just pick up another data stream and you're there. So now if you in the Lives Your Conscious system have a good working relationship, it will give you a data stream that will have in it an experience that you need for your growth. So you will get into this other reality frame. Now, the other reality frame could be a world much like ours. It's a world with people and gravity and hominids. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. They look sort of like us, but it's just a different world. And you might ask the system, well, what world is this, or where is it? And it may just make something up, but basically, it's just something you're being given. It doesn't have to be someplace else. In other words, it doesn't have to be, oh, this is the world on the 5th star from the such and such a whatever. There's a planet there, and this is that. That's us trying to make everything physical. And if that's what you need to know, it'll tell you something like that. But the real point is, it's going to give you a situation in which you're going to have to make choices, or you're going to have to learn something new or expand your viewpoint. That's the point of it, not that it is some particular place with some particular people in it. So you may meet people who tell you things that help you learn. Bob Monroe did a lot of that. If you've read his books, he went out and talked with beings who gave him information that was valuable. So you can do that too. That's just another way the system has of talking to you. It makes up a being and gives it a relationship to you, and then it tells you what it thinks you need to know. So just think of it as an out of body is a one-on-one virtual reality game. This reality that we're in is a multiplayer game. There's what, 9 billion of us now in this big multiplayer game here on the earth. But when you're out of body, it's typically a single player game. But it's the same sort of thing. It's an experience. That's what a virtual reality is. It's a place that gives you an experience. It gives you an experience that's valuable to you. So if you're a young man in your 20s, maybe even still in your 30s, you might find evil things with weapons, and you pull out your own lightsaber and you save the world from evil. So you're constantly doing martial arts stuff, and you're always saving the world from monsters and killing the monsters. That's because you're stuck in a place where violence is the answer. That's how you deal with the world, is by getting rid of the bad guys. And if that's the level of growth where you are, then that's the kind of thing you'll see. Eventually, you'll outgrow that, and your outer bodies will stop being about martial arts and saving the world from the bad guys. It's not that there are these bad guys out there that are going to do this and that to us, and we have to save the world from them. That's just a storyline to put us in a place of making choices. There's always other choices. Mostly you'll find that if you're out of body and some kind of a monster or bad guy comes up, you can just be nice to them and they'll disappear because they were just made to see if they could pull you into some kind of a dysfunctional relationship. See if you take that bait. Yeah, that's another test. So that's what we get. I don't know if that answered the question or not, but there's you talk about going out, seeing other places, other people, and so on. It's just another data stream, and the LCS will give you these. Now I got a lot of them just to show me around because the system thought I needed to know what else was out there and the kind of things that could be out there. So until you have an address, then you can't have an intent to go there. See the problem? You first get out of body and you don't have any addresses. So you really don't have anywhere to go unless you think, well, I'd like to see something that amazes me, or I'd like to learn more about the nature of this reality, or the kind of things that live here. And then if you have those thoughts, poof, up comes a scenario that will do that. And after you've done that 1,000 times to where you've got most of your questions answered, then the system will just put you places like, okay, where are we going to go today? And zip, off you go someplace. And now it's up to you to figure out what the lesson is. You learn something new. So the system took me around to many places, some that were physical, like our Earth and like our universe, and took me to visit various places, various kinds of people, various places, and met all sorts of interesting entities. But that was for my education, pretty much. I was in school, and I got a lot of things were given to me just to let me know what was there. Now, how do you know that what you get is really like that? It's not just your imagination. Okay, well, again, it's like, how do you know you're right when you were doing the remote view? It takes time. It takes experience. There is no way to directly know. There is no logical method. This information comes to you, but you never actually see the source of the information. You get a data stream, but the source of the data stream is something you don't know. Data streams can come from 3 places: larger conscious system, some other piece of consciousness, or yourself. You're a piece of consciousness. You can create information. So it's possible that you created this information yourself. And that's the adventure you've been on. It's been like a daydream. It's a night dream that's a daydream. It's a daydream while you're in a altered state of consciousness daydream. It's a daydream while you're out of body. You can think of it that way. And that's also possible. But the way there is no flag that comes with, oh, this information straight from the larger conscious system. Oh, this is from yourself, and this is from some other piece of consciousness. Because all consciousness is netted. So you can always get things from other pieces of consciousness, but generally you don't get much from that source. Mostly you get things from that you create or that the larger conscious system creates. With practice, you get to tell the difference most of the time. Probably 95% of the time, you're very positive of the source of the data. But 5% of the time, you're not sure. You have to always be skeptical. You have to always make your own choices. If you're out there and some big voice says to you, oh, I'm God, and I'm telling you what you need to do is go out and jump off a cliff, Don't go look for a cliff. Say, I don't think so. No, that's not something I would choose to do. Make up your own choice. Make your own choices. In fact, if you let some entity make choices for you because you think it's a higher spiritual entity, it's someone grand, it's someone wonderful, someone that's full of love and light, and they tell you to do things and you to do them, that will end up badly. That will always end up badly. Because even if that's the larger conscious system itself, one day it is going to tell you to take a long walk off a short pier and you will get wet. And you'll wonder, why did it do that? Well, it did that because you were no longer making your own choices. You had allowed it to make choices for you. And that's not good. You have to be responsible for everything you do and think. You can't be somebody else's puppet. You have to make your own choices. So that's a thing to keep in mind. You have to power the engine that is you. You don't go through life trying to do the right thing that you think is the right thing for some other reason. You have to not be focused on doing the right thing. You have to be focused on being the right person, being the best person you can be. It's not about doing, it's about who you are at the root. So I see another question has come by. Want me to read it this time? What is the ultimate purpose of our existence on Earth and wherever else we experience life? Thank you. Big hug. What's the ultimate purpose of our existence? The ultimate purpose of our existence is to lower our entropy. Now, what does that mean in real talk? That's science talk. What that means is that you care for others, that you love, that you get rid of your fear. Fear is the opposite of love. So you have to get rid of your fears. You have to treat everybody well. You have to think about others, not so much about yourself. Don't be self-centered. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take care of yourself. Yes, you got to get up. You got to brush your teeth. You got to have a job so you can pay the rent. Yes, you have to be responsible. You have all these things to do. But at the same time, you don't want your life to center just around you. I'm happy if I get what I want. I'm angry if I don't. That's dysfunctional self-centeredness. You have to be able to give love, care, compassion. All of those things is the point of our growing up, because all of them cause the system to lower its entropy, and that's what drives everything. The larger consciousness system is an information system, and information systems evolve by lowering their entropy. So we are a piece of consciousness. We evolve by lowering our individual entropy. And as we lower our individual entropy, we're a part of the system. So the system's entropy is lowered just a little bit as well. That's why the system is willing to work with us, because we are one of its strategies for its own evolution. So that's the key thing. Become love, become caring, become giving. Don't ask what's in it for me. Ask how can I help. Not what can I get out of this, but how can I contribute to it? And if you do that, then you'll find your life is happy. You'll find that state of positive, joy and peace and happiness in your life, and everything will be good. Life will be fun, and it's all the struggle that most people go through is self-created. They struggle because of the fear that they have. Their misery and their difficulties are because of the fear they have. It's because they're too self-centered. They're not getting what they want. Oh no, it's horrible. Everything's wrong. And of course, they know what the right is. They, in their mind, defines right. And things that are not what they want are defined as wrong. So that's the state that people are mostly in our world. Our world is composed of people who mostly have, a low quality of consciousness. We're here to evolve.
So, do you think people in comas experience a similar experience to those who choose to experience an out-of-body experience?
Sometimes they might, most of the time, probably not. Sometimes people in comas have near-death experiences, which is sort of like an out-of-body experience where they get to experience what consciousness is like. The white light, and they become one with everything, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes they experience that. That's the system just giving them an experience of what consciousness is like and where our goals are, just to help them see a bigger picture. Okay, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can be put in a coma and you basically just wake up and now you're awake and you don't remember anything that happened before. It's a total blank. The last thing you remember was the guy putting the mask over your face telling you to breathe deeply, or the person giving you the injection, into the line that runs into your arm. And that's the last thing you can remember, and there's just nothing else in there. It's blank. That's it just depends on the individual, where they are. Are they ready to learn? Are they ready to value another experience? Or would it just cause them more fear or confusion? So if the system decides, it can give you either one. Now, also, the medicines that you take do different things. They suppress different parts of the brain. And you might think, well, what does the brain have to do with it? It's just a virtual brain. It's true. It's just a virtual brain. But the consciousness that's playing that avatar has to play that avatar according to what that avatar can do, according to what that rule set says that avatar is like. So if that avatar gets in an accident, has brain damage, can't remember who it is, then the consciousness is fine. The consciousness didn't get in an accident. That's just the avatar that got in the accident. But the consciousness now has to play a player who has no memory, you see, or who has a broken leg. So now my avatar has a broken leg and can't remember anything. Well, that complicates my life. So now I have to figure out what to do about that. Where can I go? Who am I? Where did I come from? Did anybody find a wallet on me that tells me who I am? I don't have any memory. So you have to go home then and get acquainted with your wife and your children who you don't remember. It changes everything. So the player, the consciousness that is the player of the avatar, can only do those things that the rule set allows the avatar to do. So the player cannot say, well, shake off that amnesia and just get over it. Well, that won't happen because there's been some kind of damage. When a random draw from the probability distribution of how serious the damage came, it was damaged enough that there's no memory anymore. Oh, no, brain damage to that part of the brain that maintains memory. Or, maybe the person limps now, that part of the central nervous system that coordinates limbs, that's been damaged. Well, now the consciousness has to play a character that has these problems, and it's mental problems as well as physical problems. So that's the connection. That's how the consciousness just can't say, "Hey, avatar, flap your arms and fly away," because if a human flaps his arms, he's not going to fly anywhere. So it has to abide by the rule set that's there. So that's the constraint on the consciousness. So that's, the consciousness can't just do anything with the avatar that they want. Oh, there's a good one. Visit doorwaytothefuture.com for information. on my upcoming symposium. Yes, please do. That's going to be a great symposium, by the way. We're going to have a lot of fun. We've got some great speakers. We're going to solve the mystery of the universe, and we will all have a lot of fun. We're going to have lots of times for questions, lots of times for talking, lots of networking. It's not just going to be listen to a lecture, listen to another lecture, listen to another lecture, listen to another lecture, go home, eat, go to bed, get up, listen to another lecture. It's not going to be that sort of thing. We're going to listen, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it, and we're going to interact with our friends, and we're going to have some first-rate musicians there who will play for us, and we'll have music at the end of the day where people can dance and connect and talk, and it's a social gathering, a network gathering where you'll meet a lot of like-minded people, and you'll meet some people who you can learn a lot from. The speakers will generally make themselves available, for questions and conversation. So it's going to be a lot of fun and very educational. So come on down, as they say, and join. If you can't join, then get into the live stream. It's better than, it's only half the price, but it's not as good as being there, but it's the next best thing. So was that a little ad that was just supposed to slip by, subliminally or something? But I had to say that about it because most people talk about symposiums and they're kind of long and boring and lecture, 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 but this one's going to be fun. And Caroline's going to be there, and I'm going to be there, so you'll get to meet us in person.
Yeah, for sure. And you will get to practice that type of things. We will have workshops where you can go visit Tom's park, and you'll have like guided meditations and
Yeah, there's a lot.
to learn.
Yeah, it's not all lectures. A lot of it is hands-on. Do it. Experience it. So you'll come there and you'll leave with some awesome experiences besides listening to awesome speakers. All right. What's your best tip to train pinpoint mind attention? Sorry, am I stealing your job, Caroline?
Yes, you are.
All right.
But
All right.
we can answer that question.
Maybe I should ask you questions. You answer them. No. Anyway, I'll answer this one, then I'll be quiet and I'll let you ask the questions. I don't want to take over your position. I'm not nearly as young and pretty and cute as you are. People would like to see you in action more than me. So what was that question? The best way to focus your mind to precise pinpoint. It's there's two ways, two different paths you can take to this. One is the standard traditional path, and that's meditation. Learn to meditate and just keep working at it until you can get to point consciousness, which is just you floating in the void, and you can hold that for at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So just keep working on it until you get there. It may take months, or it may take years, it may take decades, but that's the starting point. Once you get to point consciousness, that's the springboard for everything else. So being able to hold it for that long, typically if you can hold it for 20 minutes, you can hold it for an hour or 2 hours, however long you need. It's just the control of the mind, so you can shut things out that you don't want. You can bring things in that you do want. If there's noise, like one good way to get robustness in your meditation is to go meditate in a mall or someplace in a park where there's children running around and screaming. You have to learn to not need a perfectly quiet, dark room, with no noises. You have to be able to meditate anywhere, anytime, jump into those states. So to build first you do it with quiet and so on, because that's easier, but then you need robustness. And then you go to a park or someplace and meditate, drop into the same kind of states, get to point consciousness, everything disappears. Even all those children running around screaming, they just disappear. Then if you will become more, do we say empathic and telepathic? You begin to hear what people think. You begin to feel their feelings, feel their emotions, feel their anger, feel whatever they're thinking about. Learn to be able to turn that off, turn it on. You can give it conditions. You walk into a big store like a big Costco store or something like that, where there's hundreds of people all milling around and it's noisy. And if you're an empath, they'll drive you nuts because you're getting all this information from all these people, and you don't go into stores like that because you can't stand it. Well, you can learn that you can turn that off. You can just say, I don't want to hear that. And you can develop your mind so you have the control to just turn that off. And then you're the only one in the store. It's silent. Or you could say, I only want to hear those people in the store who have a birthday today. I only want to hear those people in the store who have blue eyes. You can make up anything you want and create a filter that you will only hear those people talking. So that's what I mean by disciplining your mind so that your mind does what you want it to do. So a lot of empaths don't realize that you can do that sort of thing, and they just have to stay away from really crowded places, particularly crowded places where the crowd is kind of rowdy. It bothers them. But you can turn that on and off and create filters that basically just let in what you want to let in. Let you read that one. Caroline, you look like you're busy. So
Sorry, I had a technical issue. Could you read the question for me?
yes. When I finally let you read one, you have to
I have
ask
my
me to read
permission.
it. Yeah, okay. Are intuitions real or just products of the subconscious? Well, that is a very good question. They are real. They're not products of the subconscious. Matter of fact, there really is no subconscious once you get rid of your fear. When you eliminate all of your fears, the subconscious go away, and you are perfectly conscious of everything. All of the stuff that normally is in people's subconscious and in their id, you are aware of it, and it's available to you, to your intellect. You have a subconscious because there are things that you don't want to be aware of. Sometimes those are automatic things, sexuality, drives, hunger, other things that you sometimes will stuff away because they're not convenient to have them. But intuition is a real thing outside of itself. It's a way of handling data in a conscious to consciousness connection. You're connected to all other consciousness. That includes your pet, your dog, and your cat. You can connect to them as well. You can hear them. You can give information to them. All of that's available, and it's all intuition. It's all in an intuitive route, intuitive processing. The subconscious is not even a real thing. Like I said, it's a thing that we create to keep stuff that we don't want to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It stays down there in the basement and only comes up and we only have to deal with it when it pops in. we can't control it, but it's not fundamental at all. It's a what's the word? It occurs because of the fear. So yes, it's real. You're muted, Caroline.
Hey, so now.
There you go.
Sorry, I had some spontaneous technical issues, like a glitch in the system. Was it? Sorry.
It's all right. It was fine. I talked right on through it, dog barking and everything. So no problem.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, I would like to wrap this up by encouraging everybody to still come to Huntsville to meet us in September, and still this month, in end of September, from the 29th to the 3rd. You can still get your tickets or join the live stream, how we already mentioned. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to come and hug Tom, get the super experience, hang out with everybody, and also especially meet people, right? Like meet people you can get together with, and also talk about these things, to practice, and yeah, just get a lot of good inputs.
I have a thing I'd like to say here at the end if we're winding up, and that is we've talked about the paranormal, and I've told you just some about it. There's a whole lot more we could talk about, but I want you all to know that there is a product that you can find at my website. My website is mybigtoe.com, but it's my-big-toe.com. If you go there and then look at the store, you will find a piece of audio that we sell. It's not terribly expensive. My idea is to get the ideas out more than it is to make a lot of money from them. But anyway, you'll find this thing. It's called Exploring Consciousness and All of the Paranormal. So we're exploring consciousness, but mainly it's about how to do paranormal things. If you're interested in developing your intent, if you're interested in remote viewing, mind-to-mind communications, talking with dead people, remote viewing, what do I say? Healing, that's another one. We didn't talk about healing today, but healing is another one of those things. There's a different principle. You can modify the probabilities in that future probable database I was talking about. Your intent can modify those probabilities. That's how we heal. So how we make the sunshine on the day we want the picnic. Okay, that is how the placebo effect works. But anyway, if you want to know how to do any of these, how they work, what their structure is, why they work that way, and how you can develop it, and then actually get practice. It comes with practice sessions. So you go in and practice doing the things I talk about. So I talk about it for a little bit, then you go do it and practice it. Then you come back and I will answer your questions because I've done this many, many times, and I have picked up all the best questions from all the, I don't know, 19 or 20 of these things that I've done, and I will answer probably your question. And then we'll go back and we'll practice some more. And then you come up and I'll answer your questions and talk about it. And then you can go back and practice some more. It's like a 5-day course. You can do it in the 5 days, which makes it a very intensive course. People tend to learn more if it's intensive. Or you can do it in 5 months and just do one day every month if you want. Then it's not so intensive. So you might not learn as much, but over the time it'll sink in better. What happens when it's intensive is you walk away and then 3 weeks later, it's gone. You have to keep practicing it. So anyway, there's advantages to taking it slowly and doing it intensively. But if you're interested in paranormal, which you should be since that's what this is all about and you're here, then that course will teach you all the ins and outs, things to do, things not to do, tools to use, and give you a real thorough training course that you can use over and over again until you get good at it. So this is a course that you can repeat 100 times, and every time you'll learn something more. So I just wanted to let people know that because people here are interested in that sort of thing. So if you want to have a instruction for doing paranormal and special binaural beats and sounds that I've created to help you get in that state, that altered state, and stay there, then go to that course. The binaural beats come with it. You don't have to buy them separately. They're a part of the package.
Yeah, and I can really recommend it. I've been going through it a couple of times, and it's really useful to have the binaural beats in the beginning of the process, and yeah, just to also exchange with the community about experiences. There's also an option on the website to connect with other people, to create and form a bubble, or to...
Mhm. Yeah, that's where you and some of your friends get together and paranormally interact with each other. And that can be an amazing experience as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things on that website you'll find, and you'll find a whole lot of talk there about this reality is a virtual reality computed in consciousness. You'll find all that drawn out in more logical terms than what I've been able to tell you in this short amount of time. So yeah, go explore there. I guess
Yeah.
we're about out of time. I see 3:59. We've got 1 minute. So
Yeah.
Caroline, it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for the great questions. We couldn't answer everything, but we'll do our best to answer questions in the chats later, in the comments. And yeah, thank you, Tom, for all this great knowledge.
You're quite welcome. This has been a lot of fun. So if you people in the audience enjoyed this and would like more of it, or have a particular subject in mind that you'd like, let us know. And I don't know exactly how you do that. Probably go to the website, www.my-big-toe.com. But let us know what you'd like, and we maybe we'll be able to put one together that's on your subject of interest.
Yes, that sounds like a good plan. And we will also post about it in the Facebook groups and keep everybody updated with emails. So yeah, it's exciting.
It is.
I think we have 2 more minutes before it shuts down. Sounds like.
Oh, okay. Well,
so anything you wanna tell people?
oh, let's see. I'm just looking at the live talk that's going by. It's it's